long live International Women's Day. I think we need it very much. If you look at the influence and the impact that religion still has today, I think we need it very much, and women here or in other places across the world, we need it. So let's keep celebrating it and let's keep making progress. Sadly, what we have just seen last week, a couple of days before the International Women's Day, 8th of March, the UN has a new body, which is called UK Women. And not only has the Vatican and the Organization of Islamic Conference permanent observer status there, but also Iran is an incoming member. Now, there are a couple of things that are brutally wrong here. First of all, how come that two religious organizations have permanent observer status on a women's body when their whole history and their history in the UN has anything but pro-women's right, pro-equality? The Organization of Islamic Conference and the Vatican for decades now have done nothing but trying to stop progress for women in the world through the UN and other bodies. If you look at, they even had problems with having the word gender empowerment in some of the agreements. Now what do we have to say to that if they are so afraid to have gender empowerment there? That tells you everything about it. The Organization of Islamic Conference says, you know, they have their own women's organizations, but anything they do comes under Sharia law. Now, we have talked a lot about Sharia law, so I don't have to go into this, but let me tell you, the UN Declaration of Universal Human Rights for women is not compatible with Sharia law, and Sharia law is not compatible with universal human rights. So I think if we have an organization that has permanent observer status and permanent influence in the UN, they either subscribe fully, honestly, and completely to those universal human rights, or they leave. And they leave now, and they leave all their influence outside because we had enough. And the same stands for the Vatican, of course. It's not just the Vatican and the Organization of Islamic Conference, they have worked very well together over the last decades. So we have seen everything they stand for, and I also think the UN should be ashamed of themselves after 100 years of celebrating International Women's Day. To put this in front of our nose, they're spitting in our faces, it's disgusting. And I really think they should rethink if they're up for women's rights or they try to appease certain influential organizations. Now, as I said, Iran is now an incoming member. They were more or less appointed, they weren't even voted in. Now, Islamic regime of Iran at the moment sentencing women to death for sex outside marriage, whilst letting off serial rapists, for example. They have enshrined in their laws, through Sharia law in the Islamic Republic of Iran, the inequality of women. They are stoning women to death. They have they're telling women how to dress on a daily basis. There is no choice of clothing for women in Iran. And I wonder what the UN is thinking by letting such a regime come in to a UN women's body. What do they think? This is for women's equality? They are pro women's rights? I don't think so. How can we have real progress with these kind of organizations and governments in the UN bodies? I think they need to be kicked out, and I think the appeasement must stop right here, right now, because their diplomacy and their appeasement has failed completely, and I think it's a disgrace. And I don't know if we should take the UN seriously and all their words, their verbal volume about women's rights. So if we look a bit closer, for example, in South America, the Catholic Church has a lot of influence still. And what do we have after decades of the Sandinistas especially and the church working together in 2006? We have a complete ban on abortion in Nicaragua. Now, whatever you might think of abortion, this is outrageous. This means that a woman, for example, who is pregnant and has other diseases or like cancer or HIV, she's forbidden to receive treatment if this endangers the fetus. And this was pushed by the church, and when they signed it, when the government representatives signed this, the church, the bishops were there. In Brazil, a 9-year-old girl was raped by her stepfather. The bishop tried to stop the abortion. He didn't succeed, but what he has succeeded in is excommunicating the mother of the little girl and the doctors who did it. He did not excommunicate the little girl, nor did he excommunicate the rapist's stepfather. I think this tells us a lot about the church, leaving criminals, rapists in the church, but punishing the woman who thinks about her daughter and about her daughter's right. And I just think it shows us very clearly where the church stands. Afghanistan, that we liberated, of course, after the US and the UK invaded it, and that we liberated also for women's rights. A couple of years ago, the government put into law that a woman, a Shia woman, cannot leave her house without the permission of her husband, and she has to submit to the sexual wishes of her husband, which are stipulated in the law. Is this women's liberation? What is this? And this is not their tradition, this is a new law. We have the same in Chechnya. In Chechnya, you know, new country, new roots. Russia stands by while there is a wave of harassment and attacks on women to wear the headscarf. It is unbelievable that in 2011 this can happen, that women are attacked on the streets by government representatives, by other people that are encouraged to do so, and that the president there stands by and actually says he supports those people who attack women on the street. And I just briefly want to read you something.
It has to be briefly.
Okay. What he said, there are some letters going around for these women. And of course they are called Dear Sister in Islam. Your dress, dear sister, should be a demonstration of your purity and your morality, but mainly of your faith. The main fault belongs to the men. We are not accusing women. A woman won't lose her sense of reason if her husband doesn't lose his. I think in this we have everything. We have everything that religion stands for when it comes to women's rights. And that's why I say we must fight them. We must fight the Vatican and the Organization of Islamic Conferences in the UN. And we must fight, I think, for secularism everywhere. And long live International Women's Day. Thank you.